All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Sunday Main Slate Show. Week 11 ahead. 11 games actually on the slate as well. Got Hoopster, Title here with me as always. And Hoop, going to bring you in first, man. Another free money Sunday, as our boy Title likes to say. Excited for this one. This is a difficult slate, I think, for many, trying to put it together. Not a lot of values, all that, but we'll get to it. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hopefully it's as free as the Jake Paul money on Friday night. That was fun to inject right into the pocket for sure. I'll take some more free money. I mean, that was a fun one. We nailed it. I know a lot of people on our team made some nice money on the Jake Paul fight, which was, I don't know, probably the most predictable thing of all time. I guess it's easier to say in hindsight, but it ended up playing out exactly how we thought. So today, hopefully it's the same. In regards to the slate, nothing really clear, like in terms of what you want to do, like stacking wise, roster construction. I'd say pretty wide open. I mean, the running back position, there's a lot of plays we want to play, but I think, where the big decision making is today is like what quarterbacks you play, how do you stack them? A lot of it's nasty, gross stuff. So it should be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see something off the wall kind of ship today. So yeah, we'll talk through it all, go game by game. I guess the one big piece of news that we got this morning is George Kittle out. And I guess it's not necessarily like, the Eric Saberte or however you pronounce his name. That's not necessarily him, but it's like McCaffrey gets a boost, Debo gets a boost, Jawan Jennings gets a boost, and those stacks become a little bit easier as well with Purdy. So that's the one piece of news. Not really waiting on much else. Been a pretty clean week in regards to news, which is kind of wild for week 11 of the NFL season. I guess the only thing kind of waiting on is Amari Cooper, but it sounds like he's going to play, and it's not really slate breaking news if he were to sit out. So pretty clean. We can talk through it and kind of nail it down here this morning.
Yeah, this is certainly the hope. Shout out to our guy, Rob. Easy slate when you got the nation. We're going to try and make that happen for you. We'll bring up the stone. Obviously, if you guys are just joining us, smash the like. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Only about 200 subscribers away from 9,000. When we get to 9,000, we're giving away a 6-month all access with Shiptimizer membership. So going to want to get on that now. We'll have more details on that as we get just a little bit closer. Title, bring you in, man. Did you get any of that free cheese on Friday night?
I did. I got some free cheese Friday night. Thanks to my man Hoop, Big Marley. On our Thursday MMA show, Big Marley touted it pretty highly. He kept firing. I know Hoop tweeted it out, so that was nice to get. Excited for this Week 11 slates. Do not forget FanDuel. Obviously, they always have the Sunday night game. That's going to play a big role tonight on FanDuel. One of the better games. If it was on DraftKings, it'd be one of the best games on the slate. So do not forget about that. And then it's really obvious what the field wants to do. Jam expensive running backs because they're still too cheap, even though they're expensive. When you jam the Kamaras, McCaffreys, the Chains of the world, obviously we play a salary game. Most people are saving at quarterback. Most people are saving to the mid-tier at receiver and pretty much saving at tight end unless they're clicking Travis Kelce. And in those builds, I think it's going to be 2 tight end builds. Talked a little on the cash show. Kelce's still in that like price as a receiver, like a wide receiver 2 as a clear wide receiver 1. So I think it's a pretty easy slate. Pay up at running back, everyone's doing. They're paying down other spots. If you want to leverage the build like we talk about, it's really clear how to do so.
Yeah, and also got a shout out to our boy Big Marley. He was winning a whole mortgage. He said, not the mortgage, the actual house. I think he was putting on it on Friday night. So congrats to him for that. He went out and did his job again last night. This guy just crushes. You and him both. Title. Obviously, all of our team doesn't just talk the talk. They walk the walk. He went out and got an MMA live final seat and had the second best lineup in the main, almost close to a big chop up there.
Yeah, I was with him on that one too. That was frustrating. I didn't know how many people. It was like a team that would have left like a lot of. I left a lot of salary on most of my teams. The team that won must have left, I don't know, probably like 1,000. So I mean, it ended up being a 2-way chop. But I had that second team right there with Marley too, which it's all right. We'll get to the top. We've had a lot of success in MMA and a good big weekend for Big Marley. I mean, hit the Jake Paul fight and then the live final. And, we talk about it all the time. I mean, guys like that just grind their ass off, pick up their wins along the way. Absolutely love to see it.
Yeah, it's the best part. And real quick, just want to remind people, because get this out of the way early, but we did put the flash sale out on Friday as well. It's still going. So if you want to get in on the action at SHIPIT Nation, you would have had UFC 309 and all the content, all the big wins. Saw Rusty ran like $100 up to 5,002 in the streets last night. So lots of people making money in NBA, NHL, all the other sports that are going on. But you're here for football. But the code is NBA 50. It was celebrating Title's big NBA win the other night for $45K. Congrats again on that. But you get 50% off your first month of all access. So if you go to the site, I'm just going to pop this back down for 2 seconds just to let the people know. You click Join the Nation. You're going $69 down to $34.50 if you don't need Shiptimizer, which if you do, it's right here and it's got everything loaded up and ready to go. So you get your own optimizer that you can use. And then if you want the other one, it's $49.50 for your first month. You go here to monthly $99. And again, just put in the code NBA50 and you'll be good to go. You'll also get access to the Stone, which we'll always show it off for the top. Like I said, when we get to 400 likes, we'll bring it back. But let's start here. Title, I'll go to you first. Grand scheme overview for this slate you kind of just hit on. Is there anything else that you would have to add to that? Just overall from roster construction you hit on already, but anything else?
Good luck finding the stack you want to play. Again, I think that's where it can start with a lot of people. If you feel really good about Josh Allen or Jameis Winston or Aaron Rodgers or whatever name you feel good about, it'll be really easy to get over the field on those stacks. I'm going to be concentrated pretty much at the running back position. I have a couple pivots off the chalk, but like McCaffrey should be 10K this week, if not more. Kamara should be 9,400. A chain should be 8,300. So while they are expensive, they're still too cheap. NFL is not a sport where you just want to fade all the – you don't want just single-digit owned players in every single one of your spots. Just like NBA, that's a mistake. Whereas maybe golf, that is something you can do. So you got to eat some chalk, but I think there is leverage points and roster construction right away. If you want to pay up for a receiver, a Justin Jefferson of sorts, or whatever you want to do, pay up for a tight end, there is ways you can do that. But yeah, I think that's a broad slate overview. One other thing I wanted to say, if you're in SHIPIT Nation Discord, well, I love how we have it. Some sites, if you get tagged, they'll tag you for every sport. You could care less about NASCAR, and they're going to tag you about NASCAR. Some people don't know, but if you go to notifications in our Discord, whatever you play, you click that sport, you will be tagged just for that sport. You play NHL for nades, he'll tag you when his stuff goes up. A goalie gets scratched, etc. Yesterday, big news in the MMA. I'll shout out my guy Siggy. It wasn't even me. He texted me. No one else in the industry was even close to that news. I personally didn't get it. 4 minutes is really tough. I was driving. Some did. Big Marley did. He global late swapped. That helped him. I know Hoop did some too. So Notifications is really big in our Discord.
Yeah, absolutely huge information too, because everyone around the industry still played the canceled fight. I mean, and we had the news with a little bit of time to go. I was fortunate enough to get in there and make the changes. I couldn't rerun everything. Did the same thing, just global swapped, and I don't even know if it really worked to my advantage because I ended up getting a ton of that Hazif or whatever the fuck that guy's name is.
Better than zero.
Better than zero. Yeah, I'll take the 8 or 9 over the 0 for sure. But it's valuable news, and these guys are absolutely grinding. Not just our team, our members as well, and they're looking to help. And if you were in the MMA Discord before the slate tipped off yesterday, I gave away some tickets too. Like I said, in honor of all the success I've had because of the content that Title and Marley put up. I gave away $10, $25 tickets, and hopefully the winners of those tickets were able to parlay that money into some winnings. But it's a great community, man. I mean, that's what it's all about, the community feel. And I'm confident to say our community best in the industry, most helpful for sure in the industry. So very excited about that. But yeah, thanks to Siggy for getting that news out.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Check it out, NBA 50. Hoop, before you give your grand scheme, I'm going to bring this one up and give mine. I think what Title said is correct, and you kind of know exactly. That's what we want going into DFS. We always talk about this. It's not about knowing the picks and plays. That's the end result of these winning lineups. But you want to know what's going on with the slate so you can know how to attack it up against the field of DFS players, which is what we're all about. That example of Bowers, I think everybody is in the right places today. I just fear that everyone's going to be, myself included, potentially on some of the wrong pieces. You're going to say, oh, I knew it was this game. I knew it was that quarterback. I knew it was this spot, but it ends up being different pieces within it. So you're going to have to be very careful when building out those lineups. But I think when we review the winners tomorrow, we're going to see that everybody was in the right places and some of the options were just quite different than what you thought? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the clear spot. I mean, everyone's going to be going cheap at tight end. There's not a ton of value on this slate. I mean, there's very limited value. The running backs, I would consider them value, but they're expensive. Like, they're too cheap. In terms of just raw, cheap plays on the slate, it's only at tight end. So I get the point, and for sure I'm going to have some of that too. Like, I am playing, when we get to the Miami game, I am playing some Miami stacks, and in those Miami stacks, I do want guys like Bowers in there as well, because man, if those cheap tight ends tank, like it's just going to take one big game from a tight end, and you're going to need them. So I get that point, and I like to play a lot, and those. We'll get there. I think the ownership on those more expensive tight ends in the industry is showing a little higher than it's actually going to be, because you start building out these teams, and the salary dries up rather quickly, because we just don't have a ton of super cheap options.
Yeah, like that was the example. That's why I give the Bowers one instead of Myers. If it's Tyreek instead of Achane. If it's back to the well on MVS, your boy from last week, for those that didn't get to follow up on that one yet. But we'll get there. Let's start this thing off, Hoop, and I'm going to stick with you. The first game is up on the screen. The Packers at the Bears. If you guys want to keep the stone up right now, we've got about 150 likes. Got to get to 400. We'll bring it back, but we'll leave it up for this first game. Hoop, Packers, Bears. Go ahead.
Seems like every show we've done this year, the first game has been like one of the more appealing. We end up spending a lot of time breaking it down. This is going to be a little bit different this time around, and it's unfortunate that Title just pulled the hoopster and walked away, because it's going to be heading his way here pretty quickly, because I don't know if I'm playing anything here. Like, the Bears look like absolute shit. They're at home now. Basically a touchdown underdog to the Packers. Can't play everything. I mean, you just can't play everything. Packers have been a very difficult. I know Nades is going to be in here stroking his Packers within like 10 seconds. And he's probably typing up the comment right now. Yep, there it is. He's going to be Nades is going to be. He has something firing, but it's like, I don't see it today. It's been a difficult team to stack all season long. You really haven't needed them to win tournaments. Going into Chicago is typically a difficult spot to play. If doing anything, maybe Jaden Reed. There it is. Keep it going, buddy. You got better than wrong and unbelievable. I know you got something. You can add some more words to that shit. But maybe Jaden Reed. It's just going to be nothing. And I'd be willing. Like, any sort of side bet, if Nate's in here, whatever you want to do, I will bet that the Packers are not a part of the winning formula today. Like, there's just it's just not going to happen. I'm out on this game.
Stroking his Packer, someone said.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
stroking the Packer.
The Discord core that always comes out with it. Yeah, usually he's got good reason. Today he said no, though. He's not getting there. No comments for the rest of the show. You really got him pissed off now.
Is he off on? He's not playing him? He's got to be playing him.
No comments. He said you're wrong on it. So okay. You got anything to add here? I guess I'll quickly give mine would be Jacobs. But there's so many running backs on this slate. I do, though, think these defenses are in play, and that's kind of what I'm looking at here.
100%. Jacobs and Packers D is pretty much the only thing for me. Jacobs is one of the running back pivots I'm looking at, right in the chain range. Saves the 1K off of Kamara and McCaffrey if you want to go that route. Bears D hasn't been great. They're almost touchdown favorites. And the props are solid. 74.5 yards, minus 135 to score. Like, why couldn't he get 28 today and outscore one of them at a fraction of the ownership? With that O-line and Caleb Williams has been awful. Packers D, get after him, make mistakes. Jacobs capitalizes. They play from the lead. I can see it working. So really just those two, and they're going to be low owned. So it's not like you need a bunch of them.
Yeah, and I think that's correct. And I also think back to your FanDuel talk, just because it is I'm playing FanDuel today. I like it a little bit more because of that Cincy LA game, like you talked about, to round out the slate on Sunday Night Football, which is great because we'll have a slate plan up for that tonight too. Showdown. It's always a good one. Tonight should be solid as well. But Jacobs is pretty much free over there. For example, McCaffrey's like $2K more over there almost. Jacobs is $300 more. You get $10K more in salary to use and fill up the same spot. So for me,
I know why you're playing FanDuel. There's a quarterback that's substantially cheaper on FanDuel than on DK that we'll touch on in the afternoon games. I know why you're over there.
All right. We'll get there. Don't give away at all, Hoop. This is a good one. We're going to stay with you because our guy, AF Gator Jag, shout out to you. You know the Jag is on there for a reason. Are the Lions going to get my coach fired today? And Hoop, those are your Lions. It's the next game up on the slate, and they are 2 touchdown favorites at home.
I don't know how that guy still has a coaching job. It's wild to me. I mean, a team that was supposed to be pretty good and they are like the worst in the in the NFL. It's pretty insane. He's definitely got something on the upper management because man, it's been rough and he sucks and the team sucks. I mean, the Lions massive favorites. Difficult because we know what they want to do. Like they're going to take a ugly win here, like 28-7 or something like that, and be happy with it. Nothing to really prove offensively. We know the Lions offense is one of the best in the NFL. Makes it somewhat difficult, I'd say, for fantasy purposes. But I mean, at the end of the slate today, like if Jahmyr Gibbs is needed or David Montgomery is needed, you wouldn't be surprised. I mean, both these guys have probably 3 touchdown upside today. So definitely going to have these running backs in the mix. Amon-Ra St. Brown, there's not many spends at the wide receiver position. I think he definitely gets squeezed a little bit. We're not showing crazy ownership on him, but it could be really, really low. What's the likelihood of this game staying competitive? And I mean, Lions kind of do weird things though. Like you looked what they did with Dallas. I know that was a little bit of we're gonna get you and embarrass you type situation. They probably don't necessarily want to do that, but occasionally they'll just keep going for it and put up points. Like I don't think it's likely today, but there's a chance. And I'll have some St. Brown. I think Jameson Williams is a fine option. But that's really about it. Not going to be stacking the Lions. It's Gibbs, Montgomery, a little bit of St. Brown because I think he's really low owned. A little bit of Jameson. It could just take a couple plays. Definitely the defense. And I'm not playing Jacksonville. I mean, maybe a little Evan Ingram if needed, but this could be just an absolute ass kicking.
Yeah, the one thing, Title, I'll kick it to you on this is, a couple things. One, when people have to pick between a running back, they don't like it. Even though for me, it's like just wherever I land, sweet, I'll take it. They're going to smash. That's what they want to do. That's their game plan. It is interesting from that perspective. So it at least holds them in check. You have Gibbs, who's $100 more than Acham. We know what that means. You have Montgomery, who's just not in that range where people are either going up or they're staying up and putting a second tight end, or they're staying up and putting Estime, who we'll get to later, or something. They're just not really landing there. And they're going to play him. 10 to 15% I got on both these guys. I think that's about accurate. I'm fine with landing on either of them. The one thing that Mayo talked to me about on Friday, though, his thought was, what if they let Goff go off just to get right for him? I know it's not usually their game plan, to Hoop's point, but sometimes Campbell's kind of like that. And Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, you got Laporta out. So it's bright. I mean, people are talking about Zylstra, but Brock Wright's there. It's harder to stack it up and feel good with the way we have this slate, but I could certainly see it. And last time people ignored the Lions in a similar spot like this, they had their team total crushed by the half with 31 or 34 points or whatever it was. Didn't end up fully needing it, but give us your thoughts on this one, Title.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Lions by far the highest team total on the slate by like 3 points at 30, but the Jags have been awful. They're big 13-point favorites. Also, the thing about Dan Campbell and the Lions, if they get up by a lot in games like this, they did it against the Packers too. What O-lineman wants to try and get a touchdown today? What fullback, like what guy off the street, which is not good for DFS. But the running backs, I'm only going to be playing the running backs on Detroit. Max one, of course, but both of them you can make a clear case for. Dave Montgomery's got one of the best touchdown props on the slate at minus 225, and he's 10% owned. Gibbs more explosive. I guess, Hoop, do you have a lead on stuff? Like in our mind, everyone's like, they're leading. It's going to be more David Montgomery, but it feels like it's pretty split. Like if they're trailing by a good amount, I feel way better it's Gibbs. If they're just pass happy, but in closer games, it still feels more Gibbs. It feels really close. Do you have any lean on that? You watch them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it just honestly seems like it's as close to 50-50 as you can get. And it's not like if they start a drive with Gibbs and they get down to the 5 that they're going to bring Montgomery in. Like, I think a lot of people think that's the case, and it's not. Like, they're just letting these guys kind of finish out the drive. If in their mind, they're like, all right, this guy's in there for 3 more plays and then Montgomery's coming in, that's how it's going to go. If Montgomery's out there, like, all right, he has 3 more plays and Gibbs is going to come in, they just stick with it. They're sticking with the script, and it's not anything that is predictable. Like, it's not like, all right, we're inside the 5 now, Montgomery's coming in. That's not the case. It's legit 50-50 to me, and I want basically equal exposure to both because, again, I think 2 touchdown upside for both these guys is there. Who's it going to be? It's impossible to predict. And I do agree with your point. Like if the game does get out of hand and Goff's continuing to go, like they'll do some of that funky shit. They'll give it to a lineman. Like they're willing to do that to get these guys touchdowns. They want to get everybody involved, like literally everybody, not like wide receiver 4. You're talking like offensive linemen and shit. So that's definitely the risk if you're going like the Goff stack sort of thing.
Yeah, and shout out to our guy Jared here, brings up a good point. I think there's 3 games on the slate today that this applies for. So again, when you're talking about building out, if you only have 1 to 3 max, I know a lot of people say all the content's geared toward MME, which I understand. We're talking from all angles, not trying to give you picks and plays, but give you ideas of process that you can apply. And I'll talk more on that in a second with this game. But just to note, that could be a thing for this game. If you don't land there, you don't have to feel that bad. There is a possibility it's 1 for Gibbs with 80 yards, 1 for Montgomery, and you don't end up fully needing it. And Amon-Ra gets one. They do something with the linebacker. Who knows? So certainly think this is one of the games. You bring up a good point there. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on, it entails talking about a guy in this next game, is if I land on Montgomery, the nice thing about him is we just talked about. He's got the props. He's got everything that could go his way. It could be a couple that he falls in for on the 1 yard line, but also he can change the build a little bit. Not as many people are landing at 6,500. It's just one more boost. Maybe it's Keyshawn Boot, a boost off of him up to a $40-something $100 wide receiver or better tight end or better defense or whatever it might be, that it can change that way. But the last part, and it goes into this next game, I'm going to come to you, Title, on the Dolphins Raiders, is he is $100 more than Achane for Gibbs, and he is more explosive in general, not than Achane, but just in general. I'm saying like probably against Montgomery is what people are saying. But you're allowed to play him and Achane together too, like you can actually play those two and still fit in one of Kamara or CMC with some of these other value plays and these cheaper quarterbacks. So you don't have to be a if this, then that, or, I can only play one. I have to separate them and pivot. You're allowed to play both. So give us your thoughts with that moving into Achane at home versus the Raiders. We know he's going to be extremely popular on this slate.
Yeah, I love what you talked about, the roster construction standpoint from what we talked about earlier. And I think right in the first 2 games, 3 clear running back plays, Achane, Kamara, CMC, all spend ups, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Gibbs, 3 guys that of course have the upside, all favored to score a touchdown, solid props. Those are 3 guys I'll be looking at as pivots at the running back position, and good call out on the roster construction. This game, Vegas and Miami. Vegas side's really easy. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers is going to be pretty popular today. There's no doubt about that. And why is that the case? Well, he's wide receiver 1 on a team that should be trailing a good amount. And everyone's spending up at running back. You need to go mid-tier or cheaper for receiver. People are naturally going to land on Jacoby Myers on both sites. I think it's a fine play. I'm definitely going to be playing some. Does he overly excite me by any means? No. It's a really gross Gardner Minshew team. The offense can't move the football. Brock Bowers is a really interesting, I don't know if pivot's the right word because obviously they're different positions. 2 tight ends is viable today though, and he's 200 more. And if you want to play Brock Bowers and not Jacoby Myers, someone called the Brock Bowers game earlier, it is one of the best tight ends in football. He's a lot less lower owned. And you're talking about like tight end position, almost everyone's going down. If they go up, I expect it to be Kelsey. Brock Bowers has that upside. So just Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, that side. Miami side, Achane is one of the better plays on the slate. He's just so much better with Tua. If you want to leverage off Achane, I think I'd rather not. I think I'd rather make a running back pivot like a Gibbs Montgomery in that than I would go Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. You can do it. It is expensive though, $7,400 Tyreek. That means you're probably not playing one of like the Kamaras, McCaffreys. You have to pick some of the world. He does leverage off Achane though. If you want to go Tua, Achane, Tyreek, I think it's interesting, but it's just so expensive on this slate. It's hard for me to get there much. So to be honest, it's really more one-off pieces. I don't even love Tyreek or Waddle much. Obviously, that's really scary to say they can break a slate, but I think it's mainly Achane, Bowers, Jacoby, and one-off pieces. That's it.
If Tyreek breaks the slate, it's this one. And it's very simple. It's the spot. They have almost a 30-point team total. It's like 26-27. Everyone's playing the $7,200. It's literally the same thing as the other side you just mentioned. It's Myers is 56. His leverage on his own team is going to the tight end position, playing a pay up tight end instead of everyone's paying down. I think pretty much any Myers Henry lineup, Hunter Henry in the next game could probably be Bowers with Boot, who we'll talk about in a second. And I got a pivot there as well. So just little things like that you can look at on this slate. But I think this is the spot. And for me, it's not Waddle. It's Tua, Tyreek, and Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is $3,800. If they're putting up the 26 points, they're going to somebody. I mean, they have to, literally. So it's like if it's not Achane, that's going to be the thing. It's going to tilt a lot of people. But this was my take today earlier, what I mentioned, where it feels like, it's going to be some setup of this where it's the right spot, wrong guy. And unfortunately, as good of a chalk piece as Achane looks like, I do have a little bit of the concerns there. I'm still in on him. I'm playing him a ton. I'm just explaining how I'm looking at it in other builds. And then obviously the easiest way to leverage up is just go to that passing stack. You can still run it back with Myers if you want. I'm fine with it, or just no run back at all. Hoop, I'll kick it to you.
Well, one question for you, Tambo. First of all, I wanted to mention Jonnu. Good call there. Just say you're building one team and you're building a Tua team. Obviously, Achane can go with Tua. He's a pass catcher. He's good that way. But would you rather try and leverage off that ownership, or would you play it with? You would leave him off?
It's a great question, because the answer is that you can do it. I think that's funny that everyone automatically goes like what I just said, automatically went to, I want to leverage it. I don't think that should always be the case. I think you can play some Purdy with some CMC. I think there's other stuff. Like I talked about this one all the time, is everyone wants to leverage Geno or something. You can play Geno with Walker. He literally throws him 20-yard touchdown passes into the end zone. Walker looks like a better receiver than half the league or more. But in this specific scenario, especially when we get into the higher stakes, smaller dollar stuff, Achane is just going to continue to rise up because he's just been so good. And if he's not, they still are likely in my eyes against this Raiders team at home to put up 25 plus points. And so I'm seeing it. I just have to trust it. And it's for me going to be with Hill and with Jonnu to fill up the onesie position just to round it out. So I like that setup there for myself.
Yep. Makes sense. What you got, Hoop?
Yeah, I mean, the Raider stuff, it's Myers, fine mid-tier wide receiver. Bowers, I think, is a fine pivot off of the cheap tight ends, and I'm good with it, especially in this game. Like if you're going Tua stuff, which I am, I actually like the Tua stuff today. I'm going to make sure that I have some Bowers in there, and you're getting Miami. Is it the same Dolphins team as last year? Is it the same Tyreek, same situation? No, not yet, but I think it could maybe be trending in that direction. Like they got a big win last week. Tyreek kind of made the statement, we're not done yet. Like they're playing to win these games. $6K for Tua, 74 for Tyreek. And I like the comment earlier. I don't know exactly where it went, but basically someone said I didn't have like Tyreek as a pivot in 2024 as my bingo card last year. Yeah. Like this is like a slam dunk. He would have been like 70% owned, but it's like the same situation now as last year. They're in a good matchup. Tua's healthy. They have a running back that can take some of the pressure off of him. I really like the Tua to Tyreek stuff. Tua to Waddle, Tua to Jonnu Smith. Like you can do it in a variety of different ways. You can do Tua with Achane, like we talked about. So there's so many different ways to stack Tua. Quarterback, I'd say, is relatively weak today. It is a position where like 22 could be the winner. Like there's not many standout, like really good quarterback plays. Everything on the side is as cheap as humanly possible. You can play it as a leverage too. Like if you still want to play, CMC and Kamara, and you can't get to Achane, you can do a cheap Miami. You can do like Tambo talked about, Tua to Waddle to Jonnu. You're getting everything besides, Achane and Tyreek Hill. Waddle's had big games. It just all makes a lot of sense to me. And you have two solid run backs on the other side. So I'm going to be in on this for sure today. I like it a lot. I like Achane too. Like I think he's a great play. And I do think his ownership has to get held in check a little bit today because CMC stock is now rising with Kittle out. Kamara's in a really good spot and way too cheap. Both of them are way too cheap. So really like everything on Miami. I'll be way overweight on the full Miami side. And then, like Jacoby and Bowers, I think are fine options.
I know what you're laughing at. Yeah, I knew that shit. I saw Tambo geeking.
Dillinger got me so bad. I never get got either. That was a good one, Rob. He said, how many subscriptions do I need to buy to get Zach a background other than his dining room? Dude deserves better. He literally just won like $50K the other night. Can't buy a background though. That's a nice house though. That's he got a whole spot. This is, I think, is at his buddy's house, but still, he has a nice house himself. I already know about. So
at least it looks nice though. The thing that kills me, people without the background, it's like a nasty setup behind them. They got shit all over the place. Like at least you got the nice little light hanging from the ceiling. You can see you got the high ceilings going on in there. It's not in your bedroom or anything like that. I was
gonna say that buddy's chandelier back there is taller than most people's regular ceiling. Ceiling in their home. This guy's
it ain't my crib.
Chandelier. Yeah, look at that thing. So all right, I don't have much else on this game, but
You guys talked me into Tua stuff. I just wanted to say that a little bit.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It's we don't like anything. That's the whole point. I think the pre-show title comes
like
out.
You should have said, I like it too.
I like it too. What did he say? He said, I forget what you said about the stacking. I said, no. He says hard to find something to stack. The way you said it was what you meant, was what I said. It was actually, it's easy to find stuff to stack. I just don't know if I like any of it. And that's kind of what this setup looks like as well. So we'll move on to the next one. I was going to bring some Happy Gilmore. There's Happy Gilmore 2, by the way, is coming out soon. I saw they're filming it. But if you remember the scene when he says, hey, what do you say? Down by the bay, play some Drake May for a big payday. Is that what we're going to do here? These Patriots? We got Drake May, Millie Maker at home against the Rams. Lots of dudes that you can go to. And the old Kayshon Boutte down by the bay, they said too. You got to get his name right. But I do think there's something interesting about this game, all seriousness. The Patriots let go of a healthy Tyquan Thornton. And I think one of these dudes is going to be inactive, and it's going to be Bourne that comes up at 3,100. And some people are talking about him lightly, but he's not going to get played. It's going to be a very inside the bubble, DFS sites only, maybe certain shows only talking about this because he's 3,100. Projection sites, ours included, everyone for good reason right now, like Kayshon Boutte, about 3,500. But it's a tricky play, and if he only gets you the what is it? Who was it last week? Like Matt Collins versus Curtis Samuel. Well, I should have flipped to Curtis Samuel because he got 3 for 18 yards because he catches it and falls on it, but nothing for Hollins yet. And then Hollins gets the big boy plays. That's what I could see here happening with Bourne. So, Title, I'll kick it to you. Patriots at the Rams. Your thoughts on that and anything else here?
So you think Bourne's going to be active in one of like Polk?
Maybe Osborne. Maybe Osborne. Yeah, or whatever they do. I think Bourne could come back and eat all their lunch.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a value play, not like break this. Maybe break the slate because you need him as the value, but I'm saying over picking some of these other guys just to pick them because projections told you.
Yeah. So, and that's leverage off of Boutte. Thanks to our man Jordan, a French accent. Boutte, I like that. And Hunter Henry, who definitely are getting ownership. So Boutte for sure makes sense because it's really cheap, or value's really tough on this slate. And the last 2 weeks, he played 97 and 96% of snaps, which has been at the expense. Douglas, Polk, Osborne, all them were mixing in 2 receiver sets. So Boutte's on the field not almost the whole time. He's 3,500 on a slate without value. With all of that being said, it's still it's Boutte with Drake May and an 18 total, like in the Patriots. So you can by far get off of it. I will be playing some Drake May stuff though, because how cheap they are, what it gets you, the McCaffreys, the Kamaras of the world. It's low owned, and like Demario Douglas is standing out to me. I just think he's a good football player. Again, the snap counts have been a little of a concern. If he gets 70% of snaps or something, I think he's more talented than Boutte, Hunter Henry, etc. He's leverage off of them. He's lower owned. You can just go Drake May Douglas if you really wanted. I'm more than likely to probably throw in one of the other ones, but it's so cheap. It gets you all the studs, maybe 16 from May and 12 from Douglas, and gets you all the flames. The spend ups is enough on this slate. So just because of the pricing and 4.5 point dogs, if the Rams can jump out, Drake May, we've seen him drop back over 40 times. That's the stuff you like. So, man, I'm not that excited for Drake May, but on this slate, I am playing some Drake May. Other side with the Rams, I'm not nearly as excited. Now with Puka, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, it's like, man, which one's it going to be? You absolutely can't miss on them and the price tag on a main slate. I think I just rather the Jacobs, Montgomery pivots of the world for a little cheaper, and I don't see myself going too far up at receiver. So really just Patriot stuff. If you are full stacking it, though, you can pick a run back. The clear one is Davis Allen, though, at 2,500. We talked about it. He overtook Parkinson's role in the showdown. He's min price at 2,500. 10 points could be enough. I'd take 10 points any day and what it gets you. So, some Drake May stuff and mainly Davis Allen on the Rams.
Yeah, all the jokes aside, Hoop, and I'll kick it to you, but I think one interesting spot is definitely Hunter Henry, just because he's the opposite side of Davis Allen. It's not like he's getting no love. People are still playing Henry, but I'm saying you could just shut it down. You don't have to play him with May, or you could just play May and him and skip over figuring out who these guys are. You could put Douglas in there. Pop Douglas, certainly a good player that I think is fine to fit in there, but it's if you wanted to skip over figuring out the Patriots wide receiver, acting like that's a big thing because people are making it a big thing with the ownership on Kayshon, I think it's just Hunter Henry right there at 3,900. And even if in a double tight end build, I would be fine too because he's 3,900. I know Knox is going to be there later on at 3,500, but Allen, Henry. The one thing I worry about too, as I kick it to you, is Kyren Williams. Looks like a good pivot, solid. He's 7,900. He's just below those other guys, but I feel like he's the guy that could get 2 touchdowns and not be needed, just because it is like a fall-in type of thing. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. What's your thoughts on this game, Hoop?
Yeah, it's tough. This game's tough all around. Like the Patriots stuff, the only reason anyone's talking about the Patriots side is because we don't have value, and these guys are showing up as value. And if you are just using an optimizer, be careful because you're going to end up with a lot of bootay in your life. And I mean, maybe you like that sort of thing. I don't know, but he's going to be popular if you just run shit. Like there's not many value plays at the wide receiver position. Doug, I mean, I'm playing them, but I'm capping them a little bit. Hunter Henry, I'm fine with that. And then Ramondre Stevenson on FanDuel title. You probably know this off the top of your head, but I think like 6,500, right? I mean, he's pretty damn cheap.
Yep.
Yeah.
65.
So solid play over there. Prefer him over on FanDuel opposed to
Chase Brown pivot. But the Sunday night game, he's going to Chase Brown 68. That's a Chain Montgomery Gibbs pivot to the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm fine with these guys individually. I'm just not super excited about it. The only reason we're talking about them is because we just don't have a ton of value. So I'm going to have some Boutte. I'm going to have some Douglas. I'm going to have some Henry. I'm going to have some Stevenson on FanDuel. Definitely not playing Drake May. I know you guys had a little bit of interest. If I was playing a quarterback in this game, I think it might be Stafford, and I'm probably not playing Stafford. So that's where we're at. Like the Kyren Williams things, like, man, he's right there, like in terms of price with CMC and Alvin Kamara. They're just such better plays than him, but this dude's fallen in the box like 3 times if you fade him. Like, what's happening. If you fade Kyren Williams, he's scoring like 3 touchdowns, outscoring Kamara and CMC. So I haven't decided what I'm doing with Williams. As of now, I have him in, but I'm not opposed to taking him out in order to get more CMC and Kamara. Puka, Cup. I mean, single digits ownership for sure. So I'm going to play him. I'm going to get some exposure to both. Who's it going to be? Like you guys said, who the hell knows? I mean, it's one of those situations. The same thing like Gibbs Montgomery. Who's it going to be? Who the hell knows? Same situation here. Don't know. I'm just going to play them both. And then Davis Allen, I thought would be a little more popular just because we saw him on that primetime slate. He got all the work, getting all the targets, 2,500. We need value. He's still getting some ownership. Looks like mid-teens. But I thought it was going to be even higher. I mean, 2,500 for a tight end on the slate goes a very, very long way, and you're able to make a lot work. I think it was like 5 targets, brought them all in. I think he's a phenomenal play on the slate. And, if the tight end position tanks, like no one absolutely goes off, him getting like 8, 9, 10 could win GPPs. I mean, in cash games, definitely, but it could even win GPPs. So, in on Allen, Cup, Puka, both. Kieran, I have him in now, but I could potentially take him out. It's one of those situations, like, you're not going to make the right decision regardless. If you play him and you take away some Kamara and CMC shares, he's going to do nothing. If you fade him, his ass is scoring 3 touchdowns. That's like the feeling I have on Kyren Williams right now. So maybe just play him a little underweight or something. Maybe that's probably what I'll end up doing.
I would also say, I think that's a great point because there's 2 things I would do with Kyren Williams. One, I'm playing Drake May. I want to play him to make that go. And if he goes and he's in a good spot, it's obviously already a good matchup. That is what the Rams should try and do going into New England. Just jam it in with him and see if it works. And then hopefully we get Drake May stacks on the way back. You could even go something as simple as May, Hunter Henry, and Kyren Williams and just leave it at that. That's literally a perfect way to set it up. Not too much ownership anywhere. And now you can fill it out with the chalk around it, the other values. The other thing I would say, though, is if you still like him in the spot, put him with the Rams D. If you think he's going to go, but you're worried that May is not going to bring it on the other side, jam the Rams D in at 3,200 with them. It's basically the same price as playing, I don't know, who's coming up next. We're about to get to like Kamara, and the whatever the Jets D is or something that's a popular D is basically the same price. You pay up 400, down 300, find $100 somewhere else. It's very close to that. So I think there's a few ways you can go in this game if you like the spot. But to Hoop's original point, the only reason we're talking about any value in that game is because of the least amount of value we've seen in a while, especially at wide receiver on a slate with this many games. All right. Let's move on to the next one title. It is the Browns at the Saints. Just talked about Alvin Kamara. The chat's already talking about Nick Chubb. Do we want the Jameis revenge game in the Dome? What are you doing here with this one? This is certainly an interesting game to talk about.
How about the Chubb Boutte combo? That sounds pretty tasty.
Yeah, pretty tasty.
Not tasty for me. I don't know what side you're
not interested in tasting any Chubb or Boutte. You go ahead, dude. This is good. Title, you're up.
I mean, yeah, I want to play Jameis, but the problem is I think everyone wants to play Jameis. Like, if I had to pick the highest on quarterback on the slate, I think it would be Jameis. And the reason for that is, A, the price is good at $5,500, and all of his pass catchers are pretty cheap, right in that $5K, $4K range. And all the dude does is sling the ball. Whether he throws 4 interceptions, he'll keep throwing it. You want to go a little revenge narrative. They're in a dome. He's going to be popular, but I'm still going to play him because Tillman's going to be popular. Elijah Moore's going to get some. Judy is the clear leverage on both of them, the lowest owned of them all. You can play all 3 of them if you want with Jameis, if you really think he slings it. If I'm doing that, I'm definitely playing Kamara on the other side. I'm expecting a high-paced game. With all that being said, someone mentioned the Nick Chubb. How do you leverage off the most? Like, Tillman's getting ownership. Moore's getting ownership. Jameis is getting ownership. If they don't get there, it's either Saints D just absolutely smashes them, which you can go that route, or it's probably Nick Chubb falls in the box twice. His rushing prop is actually pretty good, 67.5. You talked about the roster construction wise, 6K. You're 1K less than a chain, 2K less than the Kamaras of the world. So you flip your build a little bit, plus 100 to score. I'm fine with it. Even FanDuel has a really good price tag too, and even fits the scoring better on FanDuel. I do prefer it a little over there, but again, I do think this Jameis stacks do get steam, and that is a way that it can bust if Chubb falls in twice. So yeah, I like these Browns. I'm definitely going to be playing the receivers a little Jameis, but I will probably try and get different in some Jameis stuff. Saints side, I'll let Hoop talk about his boy Scantling. All I'll say is Kamara, and that's pretty much it. And Kamara is a strong play. He's coming with ownership. Not really. What's interesting is how good of a play he is. He's minus 140 to score, and he's still, because of his PPR upside, his receptions, everything, he's just such a DraftKings god when it comes to DFS. Easier fade on FanDuel for me, even though the price is silly.
Yeah, it's funny. It's same price on FanDuel, but it's the whole point of the setup. That is where, even with FanDuel adding the bonuses and talking about it through on certain showdown slates and things where you see more wide receivers up top now, and that sort of setup, the full point PPR seemingly matters so much more in the the running back segment of guys like an Alvin Kamara. So the one thing is, Hoop, just kicking it to you, is love it or hate it or think it's disgusting, whatever it might be, the Chubb play is double leverage. Like you're opposite side of Kamara, you're within the Jameis Winston stacks. I don't really like stacking them up. So whereas earlier you Title was saying you could put HM with Tua no problem, and I just wanted to leverage it that way. Here I just would be like, I don't want these two together. I want Jameis with those pass catchers. Also, Judy has to be a good play. Like he's literally projected everywhere, including our site, the exact same projection, almost like 1-2 points less, I should say, to be accurate. But the ownership is 1/3 to 1/4, depending on where you're looking. I mean, that is what it is. Tillman has the game log. It looks good, but it's one game. Anything could happen. So I'll kick it to you, Hoop. Browns at the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Jameis stuff today for sure, but I like it. I don't know if it's like in a unique manner. I like double stacking him. I like him with 2 of these pass catchers. Hope we get like the 48, pass attempt Jameis Winston today, and he can easily pay off all these guys or multiple of these guys because they're pretty cheap. I mean, Tillman 5'3", Judy 5'4", Elijah Moore 4'3", then David Njoku 5'5". The quarterback's already cheap in Jameis. Then you have the natural run back in Kamara. They're not going to be able to, even if the Browns are playing from behind, like they don't have a running back they can just drain the clock with. So could see some back and forth here. So definitely like Jameis, like I said, but I almost prefer, I'm going to have some single stacks too, but I almost prefer him doubled up with Kamara coming back on the other side. The Nick Chubb stuff, very interesting. Going to be somewhat popular on FanDuel because, again, he's another one of these running backs that's just much cheaper. I think he has like the same price tag over on FanDuel. Say 6.2K on FanDuel, where his game kind of fits FanDuel scoring much better. But he's going to have ownership there. He's not going to really have the ownership on DK. I'm not really getting to him much on DK, but I understand the play. I'm just going to be more on this passing stuff for sure, and then I'll make sure I'm overweight on him on FanDuel because I'm playing on both sites. So that's kind of how I'm playing this one. I agree with the Judy play. Judy has to be a really good play today. Everyone's going to Tillman. Elijah Moore's getting a little bit. But even Njoku, like he's kind of in that spend range at tight end where a lot of people are going cheap. Like I'm definitely forcing in some Njoku. So yeah, like Tillman will get some ownership, maybe a little bit to Elijah Moore, but like Judy and Njoku looking like no ownership like whatsoever. So I'm definitely in on all those pass catchers. And then it's just Kamara and then, maybe Taysom, a little bit of Taysom at 45. And I swear, if you guys keep bringing up the MVS shit, you know who I'm going to at the wide receiver position. That game is still yet to be talked about. So that's all I'm saying there.
All I'm going to say is it's funny you said, I thought you were going to let it slide, and I wasn't even going to try and bring it back up to get you. The clip is clipped in our Discord, still pinned if you want to go get a good laugh.
I stand by it. Stand by it, man. I absolutely stand by the statement.
I'm going to say something. I have MVS in my pool this week, and here's why. It has nothing to, people are just like, you're not getting 30 points again or whatever it was. You're not getting 3 for 2 touchdowns, all that. But what people forget is you need 1 for 80 and a touchdown. And that's enough. Like that crushes at this price with no value on the slate. He's not Kamara, so you already got a leverage option there on his own team. He's not Taysom Hill when we got other cheap tight ends to fill it out. I'll have some Taysom, but I'm saying that's just the reason why. At 4,400, he's a bit higher than some of these 3K guys people are trying to make work. And I guess it was probably Mayo that sold me on it a little bit, was he's literally Shaheed for cheaper in this offense. And people kept saying it about Shaheed. They kept saying, oh, he can't do it again this week. Bang. Can't do it again this week. Bang. And we only need 1 bang. Like I said, we need 1.
Please stop. You're talking me into playing MVS today. Please, can we you got to make it stop.
I will stop, but I'll just say it's one time. And the Chubb thing was just someone mentioned the Chubb thing.
We have to get the official is a stance on MVS before.
It's the same as I said last week, but I agree with Tambo. Like he's the guy that it just takes 1 play, as we saw last week. He had 2.
Am I really about to enter MVS into my player pool?
If you're playing James Winston too, how does the game speed up quick? That 80-yard bomb when everyone's like, "Oh, I can't take this anymore." MVS again. Oh yeah, they do run the same shit.
I'll agree with that. I come full circle and end up shipping with Jameis Stack with MVS on the other side.
You got it now.
Even more equity in it. I do want to say this last thing before we go to the next game, and I got something for that too. But the Chubb thing was in the tidbits. I know there's a game on Thursday, but he was very upbeat about how he's good. He's back and ready. It's a great matchup on the ground. And the FanDuel key was what you mentioned, Hoop, just back to it because somebody brought it up. It's literally the same thing we said about Kamara, but on the Browns. It's like he's the same price, but he's the better fit for FanDuel. That's why. Yeah, he actually is in play today, by the way. He keeps popping up for me, but
thank you. There we go.
I didn't
say it. Hey, I didn't say it. I'm sticking to my deal.
It's an ugly slate, guys. It's an ugly slate. I got to go back and find one thing. Oh, shout out to my boy, Aaron Rasmus. He's back. All love, brother. Remember when you told me the Ravens were going to get destroyed by Bo Nix and we rolled them? I appreciate you coming back and circling back, and it brings us into a Ravens game. So tell me what's going to happen in this one. Ravens at the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Hoop, I'm sticking with you. I know you don't want to talk about that last game anymore, so we'll move on. But do you want to talk about Russ? Russ is cooking now. There's no way he fails this week with a big total at home against these Ravens. But let's get thoughts. Russell Wilson and the Steelers at home versus the Ravens.
Yeah, I feel like Aaron got put in timeout for like a couple weeks before he resurfaced here. Those were some
he's a good dude, man. He circled back. Everybody else runs off. He's coming back. Shout out to Aaron, man. He's the man.
Yeah, you got to have your takes and stick with them. Unfortunately, that was a really bad one and completely wrong. So man, it's like, is Russ cooking this week? Like 5,900 on DraftKings. Not many quarterbacks we want to play. We know how to beat how you can beat the Ravens, passing the ball, good connection with Pickens. Oh gosh, it's another play I hate because I just cannot stand this guy. But I'm going to be in on some Russ stuff today. I mean, it does look like he has a really good connection with Pickens, and Pickens, one of those guys, just got to give him a chance, and he can make a play. That's what he's been doing. So I'm interested in Russ to Pickens. You can add Freiermuth in there at tight end, coming in at really no ownership because there's so many cheap plays. But that's the kind of obvious side. I think Russ is going to get a little bit of ownership today, not a ton, but people are liking that. Getting to Lamar though on the slate is pretty. Lamar on the slate is pretty difficult. I will say, like, there's not a ton of value. The stacks have to look a little bit awkward, but this has one of the highest totals on the slate, maybe the highest, 48. I have to get some exposure to Lamar. Him to Zay Flowers to Bateman. Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm going to continue to play Mark Andrews. Like, no one wants to play him ever, and he's just been playing much, much better. So I like Lamar to Andrews, Flowers, Bateman. But again, it does get somewhat difficult with these stacks because the salary does add up pretty quickly. But I'm forcing in some Lamar stuff today. No matter what I do. I mean, they're projected to score 26. I think the Steelers can do enough to make this a little bit of a back and forth type game. And then Derrick Henry, probably no ownership, 3, 4, 5%. 3 touchdown upside every time he takes the field. So you give me a guy that I think can score 3 touchdowns at no ownership. I'm going to make sure to play him a little bit today. The difficult part with Henry is we have CMC there that everyone's going to want to play. We have Kamara there that everyone's going to want to play. There's no way he gets ownership. He'll get some ownership in my lineups today.
Yeah, Henry is the king, man. He could be back. This is the thing. Everyone's talking about the king. CMC is back, which we'll get there later, but $200 less. This could be, again, not the best matchup on the ground, but this one to me, Title, I know it was this is the second game. I said earlier to Jared that there was 3 games where you could just not need it, even though it looks good on paper. This could end up being the spot because it does have, maybe it's in the back of my mind because of Thursday, but Washington, Philly. Remember how we said that total? Now that total got a little bit there more late because of the Barkley stuff, breaking it off quickly. But other than that, it was way, way under. And this one just worries me. AFC North battle, Tomlin versus Harbaugh. Both teams like to run it a lot more. If you got the stone, it's one of the bigger swings to the rush attempts than the pass attempts. But that F, I'll spoiler alert people that want the stone, the F still exists for the Ravens pass D. So take it away, Title. What do you got?
Yeah, all year the Ravens are going to be probably the biggest pass funnel out there. You can't run on them. You're going to have to pass on them. And I'm with you, Tam. I don't like this game. I'm not playing any Ravens. It's just so expensive. Like, sure, you can always play Derrick Henry. You can always play Lamar. I only have so many lineups I play. I got to make stands. 0 Ravens for me. Steelers side was tough because the Russell Wilson thing I was going back and forth on. I ultimately decided I'm not playing him. I just don't think he's great at football. The second reason, he's catching steam because of the nature of the slate and the Ravens being a pass funnel. But the most important, I came back, just say 6 or 7%. 99% of those lineups are going to be George Pickens. My favorite guy to play is George Pickens, but I'm not playing Freiermuth. I'm not playing Austin. I'm not playing Van Jefferson. So I don't want 7% of Russ Wilson to have the exact same skinny stack as everyone else. I'll play Pickens by himself. He can catch a bomb. They are throwing a little more, and a lot of Pickens routes are go routes. Russell Wilson's fine throwing it up to him. George Pickens is a grown-ass man. So I'm going to play some of him, but I just don't think I'm going to get to Russ. Like, it sounds gross too, but I think I'm going to go like Drake May. You guys talked me into Tua a little bit. We'll get to a couple other spots. So Pickens or bust for me in this one.
I want to call this out real quick. Shout out to It's Bow Time 25, 100K winner last week. His brother, Dirty Sheik, in our Discord won 140K, and he won 100 on the same day. They both shipped 100K in different tournaments, and then Dirty Sheik, our boy, came second place to his brother for 40K, and the other one for 140. So shout out to those boys. That must have been a good week, good weekend finishing it up, and then a good week ahead. You can't lose money now the rest of the season. He said, though, you got to be smart with that money. It's bow time. So make sure, put some of that away. Don't go blow it all today on a guy like Drake May, maybe. What do you say? We can keep it rolling. But my boy, Aaron Rasmus, back in there right against me again. Pittsburgh, you said, what's Russ cooking? My smoke alarm almost went off in my office here because it might be burning. We'll have to wait. I love the call-out, though, Title, that you have. One of the most interesting ways I got to stack this today, and it's worked a lot in my experience in the past. It's Russ Wilson, Mike Williams, and one of Calvin Austin or Freiermuth, and then run it back with Zay on the other side. The reason I mentioned it first without Freiermuth, and you could do it with Andrews on the other side, but I really like just filling up all the wide receiver positions. And let's just say, what would the Ravens be smartest to do? Very simple. Shut down Pickens. Let Russ throw to Mike Williams, Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, and Pat Freiermuth. That's a good setup, but the Ravens still get smoked in the secondary. So if that happens, you could see it where all the Russ lineups like, yeah, but Pickens killed me. Yeah, that's what happens because you went and did what everybody else does with Russ. He is the best play with him, but you have to think outside the box. And if you have a portfolio of lineups and you're playing a certain percentage of Russ, I would highly recommend you put some of it with Russ, Williams, Zay. If you want to add in Calvin Austin, do that too. I like Calvin Austin today as a value. He's $100 more than Boutte today. with Drake May. So you could do that too. So keep it rolling with these rhymes. But anything else?
Is he your favorite? Is Austin your favorite if you had to pick outside of obviously Pickens?
Yes.
Yeah, he'd be mine too at the price.
I've seen a lot of sharper dudes following the tidbits and stuff too he didn't make it in, but a lot of people that I follow like a lot of his over props today, and they do more dissection of the data. It's kind of like when people say, I don't make my own projections. It's just easier to take a site, use it and play with them and figure it out and finagle them. That's the same type of thing I look at there. I'm not digging into deep dive all the data. Other people do it, and then I take that information and move with it. I think he's interesting here at 3,600 on a slate where we're starved for value. So, Zay Flowers, Henry, Andrews, other side. If you can get to Lamar lineups, it's very difficult. But if you can, you could easily see where he smokes Russ and puts Russ. He got the Michelin stars, and Russ is back in the sandwich shop doing work, and Lamar got the Michelin stars maybe. So we'll have to see that. But I like this matchup if you're for stacking it. Otherwise, I'm with you, Title. It's one that I think you could just leave alone and get away with it because it could be an under.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, take us into this next one, man. It's your boy. Gosh, when is Jetta going to show up, man? He keeps doing his little 20-point thing or 15-point thing. When's he going to break a slate himself?
Yeah, you owned my ass last week. I was like, good luck fading this dude. Yeah, good luck playing him. That was awful. It's the first week I'm not going to play him. So here goes three touchdowns, 180 yards, all the gritties. It's just like what we talked about earlier. Like, he really has to do it today. He's got to outscore the CMCs, the Kamaras of the world, maybe by a decent bit because, like, there's mid-tier, cheaper receivers that are solid. But the running back position, like, you'd have to get the Nick Chubbs of the world and stuff right. Yeah, it's really, really hard for me to say I'm not doing it, but I'm not doing it. My favorite Viking, actually, and I don't like this game much, is TJ Hawkinson, though. I mean, he might be 2% owned. And again, it's tight ends just not great. He's in the mid-tier where no one else is going to go. They're going to go really cheap to these guys, the Hunter Henrys, Jonnu Smiths, Allens of the world, or they're going to go up from Kelsey. The snap count still, it's about 50%, but a lot of them are high leverage targets. And 11 points last week. If he falls in the box and goes 5 for 60, falls in the box 18 at 2% ownership, like TJ Hawkinson's working his way back from the ACL. He has a good quarterback. Defense focus on Jefferson. I'm going to be buying into TJ Hawkinson. So he's the only Viking for me. And the Titans side, I think it's just Calvin Ridley and Titans defense. I saw someone mention Nick Westbrook at Kine earlier. We talked about it last week. The dude's always falls in the box, and it is value's cheap. Or value's tough on this slate. I still don't think I'm going to get there myself. Ridley's been great as of late, big play upside. And Titans defense for very cheap at 2,300. I will say they are getting some ownership at home, though. I don't hate it. So Hawkinson, Ridley, Titans D.
Yeah, we got to flip the build this week. Get your Jefferson, Tyreek lineups in.
Talk me into it. Talk me into Jets. Talk me into Jefferson.
I don't think I mean, it's really tough. It's what you said. Yeah. The difference is we don't have anything to make it work. So it almost doubles down. We haven't seen it from him yet. Darnold looked horrible last week. That doesn't matter to me because that's 1 week sample. I don't give a shit. It's like, let's just move on. But the problem is I still have to have a way to see it work for DFS. And that's the thing. It's like Jefferson could have his big game finally today, show up randomly and be involved. But it's like, man, there is so many other plays on this slate and we just don't have enough to make it work. You're going to need 2 cheap tight ends to really bust it. You're going to need Estimate to come through. You're going to really need something to boost it and make it happen. So I really struggle with it. Hawkinson, I thought was a great call out because he's right in that mid-range of the 3K, 3,500 type tight ends. We know we like Ridley. I'm going to kick it to Hoop on this. I know Ridley's got to make your pool, even as it's just a one-off. Our guy Juice probably stacking up the whole damn thing over there. He's getting Nick Westbrook, Akine, Ridley, Levis, Jefferson. He's going to win all the money over on FanDuel again like he did last year. But give us your thoughts, Hoop, on this one. Titans at home versus Darnold, who was certainly seeing ghosts again last week, it looked like.
Yeah, not a ton in this one. I like the Hawkinson call. I actually pulled up, and I really didn't have much of him. I'm including him 9 targets last week. Like you said, like even if he's not playing close to 100% of the snaps when he's out there, he's going to be targeted, and he'll be out there in high leverage situations. So I really like the Hawkinson call. Like there's no case to really make for Jefferson besides the fact that he's like unowned. And if you're playing 150, it's much easier to play Justin Jefferson than if you're hand building 3 teams. It's probably impossible to get there. So for me, I'm playing 150. I can go to Justin Jefferson and put like 5% ownership in on him, and I'm way over the field, really. I mean, he's basically coming in unowned, and I'll be able to find some combinations that work. But I get it. If you're hand building, even if you're building 20 teams, it's difficult to get to a guy like Jefferson. So I wouldn't play him unless you're playing a lot of lineups. I'm playing a lot of lineups today. I will include him because he's unowned, and it's easy for me to get him in there. There's like no case, though, like you guys said. Like, how do you make the argument to play him over some of these other guys outside of ownership? So I'm out on like Aaron Jones. There's too many good running backs. Cam Akers is starting to get a little more work. So definitely Hawkinson for sure on the Viking side, my favorite. Jefferson as an unowned play, which is another one of those things. Like last year, remember, we were just jamming these high-end wide receivers. Tyreek, unowned today. Justin Jefferson, unowned today. Amon-Ra St. Brown, unowned today. It's like crazy, just 1 year, how things can like totally flip. We're playing CD Lamb every single slate last year whenever we can get him in there. And just not the case this year. It's kind of crazy. Even Jamar Chase, so expensive, hard to get him in there. It's like times have changed. But in on Jefferson to say the least. And then, it's just going to be Ridley on the other side. The price on FanDuel is still really cheap. He'll be pretty popular over there, but a lot of targets, red zone targets, like he's their main guy, and fits any game script, likely playing from behind. They play from behind every week, and he's crushed recently. So good with Ridley on the other side, but that's it. Yeah,
we'll take the 2-second break. 1, 2, and remind everybody that you just got to hit the thumbs up. We got 330 right now, only 70 away, but almost 900 watching. So as we always say, it's very easy. It's free to do. It takes 2 seconds. It's not the heart button. It's the thumbs up. And then make sure you're subscribed. When we get to 9,000 subscribers, we are giving away the $549 6-month all access pass that includes Shiptimizer. So keep that in mind as well. Got to be involved in here to do that. Just real quick, my final thoughts on this one, just the Justin Jefferson stuff is it's almost like back in the day though, where even Devontae Adams, when he used to be 8,800, Kupp, when he was 8,800, they could put up 30 and not show up anywhere near a winning lineup because there's just too many guys priced at 6K and 5,600 and 5,300 that can put up 28 or almost the same raw points and still, crush for 2,000, 3,000 less. So that's really what it comes down to, and just the way this slate's shaking out. We can move on though. Let's go Colts at the Jets. This is an interesting one on the Stone too, Title. So you can take us through this one first. Colts at the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, is it finally his week? We got to get this guy going at some point with your boy. Speaking of Devontae Adams, what do you think of this spot?
Yeah, I don't know if Hoop's going to like it. I'm playing these Jets. It has a lot to do with the slate, like me not loving many stacks. The main reason is these Colts absolutely stink. Their defense is atrocious. I almost still wish it was Flacco to push him a little more, but he's been so bad. I don't know. I still don't think Richardson's any better, but that is something to note. I'm going to be playing it in a lot of ways, though. I'm going to play Rodgers with Devontae and Garrett Wilson, or you can pick one of them, too, because he is just 5,500, Rodgers that is, and you hope it is just all Wilson or Adams. I will have some of both. And fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. So, like, what's the saying go? I'm going back to Breece.
Right, you can keep adding that number up. Once it's not twice, it's not 3. Just keep going. How many games this year?
I get it.
How many championships? They're getting all these ones. Go for it.
These Colts are awful. They're at home, decent sized favorites. He's still he had 82% of snaps last week, which was more than he's had since week 7. Braylon Allen finally went a little less. He's minus 140 to score. He can catch passes out of the backfield. These Colts stink. He's explosive. He's a clear pivot from all these other running backs. Recency bias, and rightfully so. Everyone's writing off these Jets. Rodgers dust. Breece is dust. This ownership, team total's fine. Colts D stings. I'm playing the Jets, man. Could burn me, but I'm playing them in all the ways. Rodgers with the Adams or Wilson. I don't think I'm going to mess with the Conklins of the world unless you talk me into it. I'm playing Breece Hall in lineups I don't really have Rodgers, and I hope some Jet is probably on the optimal.
Oh, man, Marley got you on this one. Colts DST to keep betting against old guys this week, and it's been working out for him against everybody. Tyson, and then in the MMA streets last night again. So there you go. Bet against Aaron Rodgers. The one thing I will say, and Hoop clearly doesn't like it, but I'm way more on title side here, is it's again, I know what we got for a result last week was the shit soup that Russ Wilson might cook up today for everybody, but I will say it's the same spot. It was the same matchups, the same shitty defense, and he couldn't get it done there. Probably won't get it done again is what Hoop's going to say, but why did everyone play it last week? Because they like the spot. This spot is the same. The prices are the same or less. I think you could play him with Adams, just hope for the 2-touchdown game. And if you want to put Conklin in just to round it out, get a cheap tight end there and then fit everything else the same, it fits in a lot of the same spots that your Jameis Winston stacks fit, that your Drake May stacks fit. It fits the same. It's just whether or not it does the trick. So Hoop, I know you hate it, but I'll kick it to you. What do you like in this game?
Well, I mean, you just said it 4 times. Why are you assuming that I hate it?
The way your body language associated towards
body language. Okay. All right. So you're reading the body language.
Yes. Good host. Good host to read the body.
Interesting take, because I think I've probably played this more than anyone on the show this year. Right? I've endorsed it all season long, and it's fucking not paid off. You think my ass is quitting now?
Okay.
I'm in. I'm not quitting this yet. I got to keep going. I have no choice, man. I'm invested. Gotta see this through. So in on it, more on the FanDuel side, to be honest with you, but I'm playing it on DK too. Definitely gonna have a lot of Breece, a lot of Garrett Wilson, a lot of Devontae Adams. It's painful. It's been painful all year. Lost a lot of money playing it, but I'm not done yet. I've lost money on dumber stuff. In with you guys again, probably more so on the FanDuel side, just because I'm struggling to find quarterbacks a little bit more over there that I like, but I'm playing all the pieces on DK as well. I just don't know if I'm going to fully get to like Aaron Rodgers. Tough part is the run backs, because there's really nothing you want to play on the Colts side. So I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to run it back with anyone. I will say Anthony Richardson on FanDuel.
Double AR.
He's been bad enough. You don't need to know his first name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 6,400 for Richardson on FanDuel is interesting. I mean, he's way less than anyone else over there. There's a lot of things you can do. Like McCaffrey's expensive at 9,800 over on FanDuel. There's a lot of unique things you can do with Anthony Richardson over on FanDuel. Don't necessarily have to pair him with anyone, I don't think, at that price tag. You can kind of run him naked and then play one of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, or multiple. I mean, you could play 2 of those guys, I think, with Anthony Richardson. Hope he runs in too, and we get a high-scoring game, and it allows 2 of these Jets guys to get there as well. So I don't hate that sort of build on FanDuel, but long story short, I'm with you guys. I've talked shit about it. I'm sure we're going to be back here next week talking shit about it, but at that point, I might have to bail. If it doesn't go well this week, I might have to bail for week 12 of the NFL season. We'll see. But no, I like it. The end of that game was last week. I mean, they're getting their ass kicked, got absolutely embarrassed, but Aaron Rodgers just feeding Devontae Adams, just absolutely feeding him. Maybe like they start the game with that this week. I think that would be something they should look into potentially doing. So in on it. It hasn't worked all year. Maybe this is week 11.
Let's get you chuckle hoop.
Yeah, who put on the chapstick now? Let's get to
now it's not. Yeah, that's the tell. That's the tell right there. When I'm in on something, like the chapstick goes on.
Really, what I was trying to do was, talk you into shitting on Aaron Rodgers so we could run that clip back next week. We finally get the 3 for 300.
You don't have to talk me into anything else. You maybe got my ass to play MVS this week. So.
Yeah, that's true. And no, he's actually way more expensive on FanDuel, but it's just how it sets up, and also the receivers like Devontae Adams is the same price over on FanDuel on a touchdown type site. I love that because it's 2 touchdowns to him. That's a big game for Rodgers and for Adams, so I think that's good. Also,
he's just significantly cheaper compared to all the other guys over on FanDuel. Like in the range that he's in on DK, like he's another step below those guys over on FanDuel.
That's right. Yeah, he's the same price as Kirk Cousins over there, and who knows what you think of that or others do. But I will say we might have to pull the Uno reverse next week, because 900 people watching is more than last week at this time. Still only 367 likes. And now I start to think it's the members holding out because they don't want people to see the stone. But you guys know when you join SHIPIT Nation, our number one thing is about giving back. So we might just give back the whole thing next week and do a Uno reverse and make it the free show. This week, though, the giveaway is not a giveaway. It's the best deal you could possibly get. This ends on Monday. You want to make sure you get in now. 50% off your first month over at SHIPIT Nation. So as little as $34.50, which is basically the weekly price for most of our stuff. And that gets you everything. If you go to the $49.50, the $99 all access package, that gets you everything we offer plus Shiptimizer. So check that out. Go over to the site. Make sure you're getting in on the action there. Only other thing I'll add to this game then is the Jonathan Taylor side. This reminds me a lot of the Kyren Williams stuff I brought up earlier. If you like him to speed up the game with your Rodgers stacks, put him in with those, because that's how he gets going. That's how you beat the Jets on the ground. Roll him through, run the stack back to make it so that Rodgers does have to pass. If you had the stone, you would see how often they pass, how often Wilson, Adams are on the field, how much they're getting targeted. Same with Conklin. That's why I mentioned him earlier. But if you don't like it, I think you should just pair up Jonathan Taylor with the Colts D. That simple. Just end it there, move on. I'm not trying to figure out these wide receivers or pay up for them. I think that's kind of the setup for me there. But let's move on. Title, anything else you want to mention on that game? If not, you could take us into the Falcons with a matchup at home in Denver against Bo Nix at home with the Broncos.
This, I'm guessing, is your third game you have no interest. This is a game I have no interest, so I'm just going to shout out Mark F. for winning the 2K in MMA yesterday for 18K.
Yeah. I love that call out. And he said he's flying. He's always flying on Sundays.
Too rich.
Yeah, he
Too
must.
Rich.
Yeah, well, he is rich. He won the Millie last year at in Showdown. So, well, we'll just say that about him. We love Mark. He's a good dude. We got to meet up with him in Arizona last year. Awesome guy. Came over to the house, hung out, went to the golf course, all of that and more. So shout out to Mark. Hoop, I'll kick it to you then because Lil Jordan Humphrey back in your life again this week. 3,200. You know, people like Sutton. What is it? Vile they like. And then you got Lil Jordan Humphrey there. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the little Jordan at 32. I mean, it is if you are playing Bo Nix, I mean, I guess potentially you could go there.
If you like 0 points, go to him.
I mean, he gets like targets, so it's not like he's just not like 3'6", 5'3", 3,200, no value. I'm not gonna argue for Lil Jordan anymore, but might have a few shares in my lineup today. I mean, on like some of the Bo Nix stuff, like he's looked pretty damn good. His connection with Sutton looks solid. It is tough though. Again, it's very similar to the Pittsburgh situation, the Russell Wilson stuff, where it's like, I thought it was a really good point you guys brought up, where it's like, if you're stacking Russ, it's probably just with Pickens. It's very similar with the Bo Nix situation. Like if you're stacking Bo Nix, it's just a Sutton, and that's what everyone else is doing. So I'm fine playing those stacks. I'm playing the Russ stuff, but you got to be, I think, creative with what you do the rest of your lineup if you are like hand building. So I'm in on Bo Nix, I guess, at home. Like the Falcons have given it up a few times this year, but it is difficult outside of Sutton. Like there's not many other plays you want. Estime 4,500, getting a lot of work. I'd probably like really the only cheap running back on the slate on DK. Think he's fine. Drake London, Pitt, maybe a little bit of Bijan, coming back. I mean, the only way I'm really going to play the Falcon stuff is if I'm on the Denver stuff. Like if you're not playing the Denver stuff, I don't think you need to play the Falcon stuff just because it's not a good spot in Denver. It's another, somewhat difficult spot to play. So kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I also don't think you need to run it back at all. They're the spot where they can spread it out a bunch. It's not the other game. I got one more I'm going to mention on that in a second. But the setup here is like, Sutton, who you mentioned, Denver. The Estime thing is what I want to talk to Title about because I don't think he would even be talked about if it wasn't this slate. I get it. Like there's more potential for him. All these other factors that people are bringing up. He's taken over now. I saw him. Can't remember if he made the tidbits or almost did. Maybe I left him out on purpose because I just wasn't feeling it. But I listed to somebody I was talking to over text, and they were like, "Oh, you got to get Estime in there." I was like, I just can list in 2 seconds on my phone 12 running backs I would want to play in front of him. But I get it because there's no value on this slate. It is a way to change the build. So for me, that's why he would make a little bit of, a few lineups. The setup is because it does flip the build. But I'll let you go first, and I'll talk more if I think of it.
Yeah, it's the salary, it's the flipping the build, but I mean, running backs, you're giving up the opportunity cost at running back. You just can't miss today. Like I'd rather play the Gibbs, the Montgomerys, the Jacobs of the world as pivots, but not completely flip the build. I'd rather go Nick Chubb as my cheapest and leverage it multiple ways and hope he falls into than go Estime. I mean, they're still going to be working in some of these other guys. Like he's not going to be 80% of the snaps. I don't think by any means. I don't love it. I don't. FanDuel, to be honest, I like it more than DraftKings.
Yeah, we got the stone up. Shout out to everybody. The 411 came through. We got 411 on there. We appreciate you. I guess the only other thing I was going to say is like, if you get him in there, you could put him with Denver D. Is certainly a way to go. Like if you don't like Cousins or you don't feel good about it, it's $2,900. Most people are playing the $2,800 Jets or going down to $2,400 or $23 with the Titans and the Bears or just slightly above. So I guess there's that angle of it, but he does get you a little bit different in the overall build because most people are paying up for 3 running backs. So that's about the only thing I can say. It's just we do have mid-range wide receivers already. So it's kind of more of if you want to go the balanced build on today's slate, you may still end up with a cheap tight end. That's just the nature of it. but it may get you all like 5,300 and above wide receivers while still getting two pretty good running backs and a good quarterback that fits your stack. So Hoop, any other thoughts on that? If not, you can take us into the other one.
Just the one question I had for you guys is like Bijan, what are you doing there? Like very similar to Kyron Williams, I'd say. Like Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. I think very hard to decide what you do with those guys because they're priced very closely to CMC. They're priced very closely to Kamara. Like where do you stack him up? Are you guys playing him? Just the overall thoughts on Bijan.
Good call out. I'll go quick. It's just I'll put him in these Bo Nix stacks. I would want him to get the game going early. I don't think I think he's an excellent running back. I just don't think on this slate, the same as like Kyron Williams, I kind of want, because I like the Drake May stacks better. I have ways to go there, even if I skip those receivers, but his matchup is way better too. And I feel less likely that he's going to be competing. I always say this though, I'm not scared of Algier. That's built in already. People have to remember that. I've went on rants about this already. Don't be mad when Algier gets chances at the goal line or stakes a touchdown. That's already built in. You're playing Bijan, hoping for 20 touches, 5 catches, and a touchdown or 2. But Title, I'll let you give your thoughts on it.
Oh, that just reminded me. At the 1 yard line last week, Algier is 0. Algier is 0. Algier is 0. All right, 4th down. I guess we got to give it to our guy. He'd still be running. Like,
insane,
what a donkey.
Some of his coaches just so dumb. So dumb.
Yeah, the Bijan stuff, man, he's one of my favorite plays last week. This week, he's on the road. They're dogs. But just the eye test wise, Bijan has looked absolutely incredible this year. Like 1 catch, 1 run can be 60 yards and completely nuke. That 11% ownership we have, I wouldn't be surprised if that's 7%, 6%. I do like Breece more because home favorites. So I expect the game script to be better. Awful defense on the other side. But comparing the other ones in the range, like I like Bijan more than Kyron. I like Bijan more than Derrick Henry. I like Bijan more than JT. But I do like Gibbs, Achane, Jacobs, Kamara, McCaffrey all more. So it's like, I guess, how far do I want to spread out things? Like, I know I want a ton of CMC. I'm going to play a ton of Kamara. How many pivots do I need up there? He's a solid play, but at the end of the day, I don't think I'm going to be able to get as much as I want. But I'm never going to talk you off a Bijan 7% on this slate. Like, he's so good. He's so good.
I just feel like for me, it's exactly the thing you said, but that's why when I build my portfolio out, it's like I know where he's going. He's going. People say, "Oh, you only took a little bit of him." I took him exactly where I want him. I want him in Bo Nix stacks because I think he gets the motor going. And if it doesn't always work out that way. And obviously, I have the whole portfolio for a reason to play around with it. But for the most part, that's what I'm looking at. Like if he speeds up the game for us playing the Bo Nix stacks, then I would want to have that happen. But it's simple. Bo Nix, Sutton, him, and you'll fill out the spots the rest of the way. That's how I feel.
That's how I feel like with all the Falcons guys. Like the only way I think it makes sense to be on even like London today. Like I'm going to play him.
I agree.
There's just such better suited to be in the Denver stacks if you're on Bo Nix. Like if you're not on Bo Nix stuff, like I'd be totally fine being off the Falcon stuff. I'm in on Bo Nix a little bit, so I will be in on some of this Falcon stuff. But like I think it's totally fine to be off this game completely, to be honest.
That's me. I don't want Bo Nix. That's why I don't think I'll get to the Bijan as much.
Yeah,
but
I think it makes total sense today. Yeah.
We got 2 more games. Before we get to that, I like this comment from my boy Aaron. I got to give him some love too. We know that the ownership will be spread. One thing I will say though about the exact combo you brought up is like Russ Wilson with Pickens is basically the same price as Rodgers with Adams, and that will not be the same ownership. Adams will be much lower owned, especially coming in with a Q tag that's not real. In that 2v2, just so you know. And that's an example where people will say all the chalk got there. The Russ Wilson line has even more chalk in it because it adds Pickens, and Wilson probably has more than Rodgers. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe it comes in close there, but it will not be close on Pickens versus Adams. And that's where the setup lies. And that's where the Geno to JSN a couple weeks ago or whenever it was, all the chalk hit. No, nobody actually played JSN. Nobody played Geno. It was like 6% and 5% or something like that. So little things like that you got to keep an eye on, but good call out by you. The last 2 games, and Title, I'm going to stay with you, brought up the CMC stuff, but I said earlier to Jared there was 3 games. It's no shit that the last game on this slate stuff gets spread out. I was talking about games that people are really heavily focused on. This Seahawks 49ers was the one. I'm playing it for stacks, almost like the Pittsburgh-Baltimore, but I won't be surprised if it is just McCaffrey that's needed or just Jennings that is needed, and it's because it gets spread out to too many guys between Walker, Metcalf, JSN, Lockett, Barner. On the other side, McCaffrey, Debo, Jennings, Pearsall, whoever else, like that's the kind of setup I could see here as well. But obviously CMC, the talking point. Go ahead, Title.
I'm going to throw it to I like Brock Purdy, CMC, Debo, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. The Eric Sauber stuff, I'm not quite sure yet. Like, he's so cheap if you're playing Purdy stuff. The one sample we do have with George Kittle off the field was week 3. Debo didn't play that game. He had 86% of snaps. He only got 2 targets, though. Like, they have a billion other guys, so I don't love Sauber. What are your thoughts, Tambo? Just say 20 teams or less. I debated it last week. I talked a little with Hoop on the Friday show, making a rule to have at least one 49er.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to see all of them busting, especially with Kittle, where the target tree even condenses more. Like someone said, how does CMC fail today? Well, Brock Purdy might throw for 350 yards. Seahawks might control the clock. Just first down, Kenneth Walker, and then just CMC gets stuffed a little bit. Maybe he gets 22, but Gibbs, Montgomery, a chain, Jacobs get 30-something. So there's ways he can, but if he doesn't get there, it feels really hard to not see Debo or Jawan or Ricky Pearsall. So I love these 49ers. I'm going to play a bunch. I am debating that rule with like 20 teams or less. And CMC is the clear guy. Like, yeah. I wouldn't argue locking CMC today. I mean, he should be 10K, 10.2K. Cool to see CMC back in our lives. Going to be playing the Purdy stuff. You can play him with CMC. You can play Purdy, Jawan, Debo, Pearsall, pick 2. You can throw Saubert in there. So 49er stuff's going to be popular, rightfully so. Great spot. The Seattle side, I don't know, man. It's tough. But if I'm playing Seahawks stuff, I think I need to go to some. AJ Barner for 3,100 in double tight end stuff. He's been tight end 1. Tight end's not great. He's a pivot from those other guys at lower ownership. And then I think it's really DK. Like, I don't love Kenneth Walker as a pivot up there from a chain. I prefer Gibbs. I prefer Montgomery. I prefer Jacobs. You can go that route, 6.5-point dogs. I think it'd probably just be DK or JSN, though, and hope that's what carries them on that side. But I love the 49ers stuff.
Yeah, if you like this game, that's what I was going to say. I certainly like DK as treating him like Jamar Chase with Burrow. Like, if DK has the big day, it's very likely Geno comes along with it. You could see, and I know everyone's going to just say the 2 weeks ago example I just brought up where you had Geno with JSN. There was no DK in that game. And then on top of it, the other setup was that, he got 40. If he doesn't get 40, it's not necessarily needed. So you could have like a JSN with a Jennings stack or a JSN with a McCaffrey. If I got Metcalf, though, I'm more likely, or the majority of the builds that have Metcalf are going to have one of Geno or Purdy, because it means the game's going back and forth, and we're having that. You can overstack it, like the chat says, for sure. I like the Geno Metcalf Barner with a McCaffrey on the other side. That cuts into the ownership and cuts into the price point of that as well. Geno is right there in the same price range as all these quarterbacks we've been talking about, the Russ Wilsons, the Winstons, the Rodgers of the world, the Drake Mays, all of them are in that same range. And that goes to Aaron's point earlier where it gets spread out. I don't see DK getting big ownership here. I don't see Barner getting any ownership. How do you cut into the McCaffrey stuff is that way. The one worry I do have, and I'm playing a ton of Christian McCaffrey because sometimes you just get away with it anyway, but is what you said. If he has the 22-point game and some of those 12 running backs I talked about that I listed off earlier, if they all have the bigger days, and then it becomes a problem. And what if Jennings still has like 18, then he's really good at 5,300, and maybe that's your Seattle guy. Last 2, Hoop, and then I'll kick it to you because it's a popular game. But Debo Samuel squeezed hard here, right between the middle. Like, he just can't get ownership. People are going to play Jennings. They're going to play McCaffrey. Or they're going to play both of those two before they get to Samuel, I think, at 6,800. We talked about ways that you can build up your salary so that you can get to these mid-range wide receivers, but just not many people are ending up there. So I think that's a key point. And then the last one is Kenneth Walker opposite. He's the same. I mean, would you play, there's money involved here for sure, but would you play Chubb instead of Kamara and Winston? Or would you play Walker instead of Geno, Purdy? You could put him in Purdy stacks, I guess, instead of McCaffrey or with McCaffrey. How would you handle that, Hoop? Chubb or Walker as the double leverage spot?
Walker, yeah, for sure. Just because I want to be more in on this game than the other game. To touch on Title's point, I really like that call. And I mean, the way I'm building teams, I'm naturally going to have that. But I like, one of these guys. Like, it's just hard to imagine that a 49er is not on the optimal lineup at the end of the slate today. Like, whether it's McCaffrey, Purdy, Debo, Jennings, Pearsall, I'd be shocked. the Debo thing, I think I want to be way over on Debo because I know Purdy's going to be probably the highest owned quarterback. McCaffrey's going to be him and Kamara the highest owned running back. Jennings is going to be very popular now at wide receiver. Debo will get some ownership, but he's going to fall behind those other 3 49ers guys. So I think he's going to be a big part of what I do today. Pierce will define option 2. A lot of different ways to go about stacking it too. Like you can play Purdy with McCaffrey. You can play Purdy with 2 pass catchers. I mean, just so many different ways to go about it. And then the tight, is it Saubert? Is that how you pronounce his name?
I think so. Eric Saubert.
Not as excited about him, but he'll be in the pool and I'll get some exposure to him as well. I mean, you probably need a low scoring tight end slate for him to be the guy, but at 2,500, we know a lot of people go to Davis Allen. He's a fine option. Seattle side, it's mostly DK Metcalf. I mean, when Metcalf's been healthy this year, it's just been him. Like they've just absolutely fed him the ball. Big time playmaker, prices I think cheap, ownership low. Love the DK stuff. Good with Geno. I mean, they pass the ball a ton. If they're trailing, they're just going to pass the ball. They've done it all season long. One of the highest pass rates in the NFL. Not the greatest matchup, but playing from behind, he'll just absolutely sling it. Barner, cheap tight end. The one I'm struggling though with is Kenneth Walker. Just so many good running back plays. I have him in because I'm going to be on this 49ers stuff, but he's got to beat a lot of guys. I mean, he's got to beat a lot of guys at the position, but the workload is certainly there, and he can get there in any sort of game script. So have him in as of now. Probably be a little underweight just because there's so many really strong running back plays. I mean, very, very strong. And then he's kind of in that range right in between like Gibbs and Montgomery. So you're sacrificing some of those Detroit running backs in order to get more Walker. But either way, this is a big time game in on all aspects of it.
Yeah, and you don't have to do this. I'm just saying a way I think about it, right? He's only 6,500. That's the nice thing. He's usually a lot more money, and that's where it gets a bit trickier. When I'm talking about the Jamar Chase example, it's the style of play, the capability of 2 to 3 touchdowns, and that would really hook up Geno. But at 6,500, it's not the same versus Jamar Chase is usually 8,200 or 7,900 or something big boy price tag. So there's that. The other thing I will say, though, that's super intriguing about this game is Geno, Metcalf, JSN, Debo. Even if you drop one of those Metcalf or JSN plays at 6,500 to get that mid-range of wide receiver, you might still be able with a cheap D and a cheap tight end, maybe even a 2 tight end build or an estimate, be able to get this game stack without McCaffrey, but with a completely different build. And then you still have money to spend on HN and some of those other good running backs that we talked about. So that's the way that you could see this where you're on the right spots, but the slate gets a little bit of a shakeup because of that. So just a little thought there. Last game on the slate. Title, I'll go back to you. Going to be quick for me because I don't really care about any of this stuff. I think Kelsey, Knox, maybe that's it. Yeah,
Shakir.
Go ahead.
Shakir and D-Hop. That's all I got. I'm with you. Kelsey, Knox, Shakir, D-Hop. Yeah, I mean, paying up for quarterback is really tough on a slate like this. If I was to pay up for anyone, I think it would be naked Lamar or Lamar and Zay. And that's just because if someone's getting you 35, 40 at quarterback, I'll always bank on Lamar's upside. It's definitely can't be playing Mahomes that expensive. Josh Allen does have that upside too. I very much respect this Chiefs defense, though. They always come very well prepared, well coached. Hard to see too much upside on the Allen side. And even if he got 30, 33, that might not be enough because of this tight salary that we're talking about. So it's one-offs. I prefer other pivots in the James Cook and Hunt range, so I don't see myself going there. We do expect Amari Cooper to be back. They are without Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman, though, which is why Shakir's price tag's great. Problem with Shakir, man, it feels like every single one of his targets is a wide receiver screen, and he gets 8 yards, but there's not the ADOT's not a lot. I don't know. He's a fine play. He's ownership on both sides. I really don't get that excited about it. D-Hop and Kelsey are my favorite plays, though. Mahomes is going to get those to the football, plenty of PPR upside. And the thing with Kelsey, in 2 tight end builds, guys he's priced around at receiver, JSN, DK, Jaden Reed, Shakir, who will probably be higher owned, Calvin Ridley, Sutton. You look at what Kelsey's been doing recently, those targets are massive. I mean, I think he's the best play out of all those guys I mentioned. Maybe DK is a little better. So more than likely, probably Kelsey, when I play him, will be 2 tight end builds, because the second one will be a 2,500 Allen, a 3K, etc., and just go to Knox on the other side. But yeah, one-offs, and it's the PPR guys: D-Hop, Kelsey, Shakir, Knox, and call it a day.
The Shakir point was a good one too. He made the tip. It's like it was basically talking about him going to be able to eat in the slot matchup. But it's like what you said. You're paying $6,300 for it, so it's going to rack up to what? 8 catches for 85, solid. But it's like you're paying 63. You're going to need the touchdown. You're going to need something big to pay it off, and it's possible. Definitely don't hate it if you had like a Kareem Hunt, Shakir secondary stack, maybe some of those, or Shakir, Kelsey. I also think it's kind of interesting because I'm not interested in the quarterbacks, but to play Kelsey and Knox and do my 2 tight end build that way, where it's less than 10K for both. And you could definitely see 35 to 40 points from those 2 guys with the injuries stacking up. These 2 quarterbacks get a piece of it and then still be able to fill out the rest of your lineup from there. But Hoop, I'll kick it to you. Final game of the slate.
Yeah, I'm definitely more in on this game than you guys. Like the reason I like the Bill stuff is, yes, Josh Allen is expensive at quarterback, but there's not a ton of quarterbacks that stand out as, man, I need this guy. Like he's going to go off for 30. Like him going off for 30, I think does win the slate. And it's not as expensive as you think. Like you get a cheap tight end with him in Knox, 3,500. The pass catcher in Shakir is mid-tier. I still like Mac Hollins, regardless of what happens with Amari Cooper. He's cheap. And then you have clear run backs on the other side, Hopkins and Kelsey, who are both kind of priced in the mid-tier. So I'm going to force in some Josh Allen stuff. I just kind of, as you guys were talking, looked at the teams to make sure they're not like super nasty. And the teams are pretty legitimate with Josh Allen, a pass catcher, and a run back on the Chiefs side. Like I don't have to do anything too crazy. Yes, getting some double tight end teams, but you're going to get a lot of that today, especially on DK with lack of value. So interested in Josh Allen stuff. And then, quarterback on FanDuel is tough. Definitely not going to play Patrick Mahomes on DK, but 7,900. He's under 8K. I like Hopkins. I like Kelsey. This is a slate, I think, where quarterback scoring could be low, where 20 could potentially be the winner. You don't even have to comment on it. You don't even need to. You don't even need to. Like, I know you like to talk. You don't even need to talk about this one. We can move right past it. But I am going to have some Mahomes on FanDuel, I think. I know never Mahomes, all that. And you're not going to talk me off of it. So there's
you no should by now. SHIPIT donation. Keep donating, buddy. It's 80 weeks now, and you just want to keep giving your money away.
Oh, man, I can't wait to clip that one when Mahomes shits me all the cheese.
I can take 79 more clips when I proved it wrong, so it doesn't matter. And you said sometimes Mahomes, how's your third place? I love you, Robert.
Well, I mean, but you can really, the thing is you can say that. You can say that about like almost every quarterback. I mean, there's very few quarterbacks that kind of end up. I mean, it's tough to be on the winner. I don't know. I'm in on it under 8K. There's no quarterbacks that stand out. I like Hopkins. I like Kelsey. I like Knox. I like Shakir on the other side. Like I said, I like Mac Hollins a little bit too. So I have direct run backs. Again, I'm not doing it on DK. It's too expensive. Don't like it there. But I'm gonna play it on FanDuel.
Play the Allen side though. Like I would honestly.
Well, I'm playing that. I'm playing the Allen side too. It is weird because it is a little more difficult on FanDuel to play the Allen side, which typically isn't the case. Just from what I'm seeing with my teams, my build, maybe it's because McCaffrey's so much more expensive over there. But it is kind of difficult to play the Allen stuff. But I like this. Definitely more than you guys.
Yeah, I think that's the way I would do it. Like I think the one thing you said that was key is, no one's paying up at quarterback, and you have a way to do it via Knox, which people are at least somewhat considering Knox in some cases, even in a 2 tight end build. And that 2 tight end build can be with Kelsey on the other side. So like you could legitimately play Allen, Knox, Kelsey and call it a day. You could get off the 2 tight end and say, forget that build. I'm going to go to Allen, Knox, Hopkins, or Kareem Hunt. Like I'm fine with that setup of it. Mahomes has to go for like 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, etc. It just doesn't happen. And it's not like it's free even over on FanDuel. You're paying up almost 8K for Mahomes. You're paying up from DK to almost 7K for Hopkins, almost 7,500 for Kelsey. It gets even more expensive over there. Do it on DraftKings, maybe 68, 57, 63. Use Knox as your cheapie. And if Amari Cooper plays, 5,700 for Amari Cooper and Knox for what? 80, it's not much money to put those two together and try and get 30 points out of them if you think Allen's going to have a big day. So not much else there. Title, do you have anything else on that one or anything else on the slate as a whole?
Late swap stuff, there's only 3 games in the afternoon, and it's very clear that 49ers stuff will by far be the most popular. So you need to go CMC to Bijan because you're behind, and then you upgrade to some other chalk or get off a chalk to upgrade somewhere else. You have estimate for really cheap if you need to pivot to absolutely flip your build. Kenneth Walker's got upside. Just the only 3 games afternoon, which I don't love, but it's clear where ownership's going to go, and late swap is very, very big in DFS. So, yeah.
Very big on this slate, actually. I guess good point you brought that up. I didn't think to mention it, but everybody in the afternoon is going to have Seahawks and 49ers. No one's going to have the Broncos, really. There's some. I'm always putting it in generalities, but it's 70. It feels like 70% of the action in the afternoon is going to be in on 49ers Seahawks stuff in one way, shape, or form. And it's like there's Bo Nix to Sutton with Bijan over there. That's definitely going to be an opportunity to get to some of your Purdy, McCaffrey, Jennings type stuff. You can get Debo in there. If people are playing the other side, you get Debo as a pivot. You've got the Chiefs Bills stuff that we just mentioned. So certainly interesting from that perspective. Like maybe I end up getting to some more Josh Allen if some stuff fails in the morning, or some more Bo Nix if stuff fails in the morning. But other than that, I'm going to be set up, I think, with Geno and the Brock Purdy side more in the afternoon. And then Beetlebane mentioned it too, that was another division game there with the Seahawks 49ers. Could be a slow. And that's why I brought it up earlier too. It's kind of those games today. Hoop, any final thoughts from you, man?
Fun slate. I mean, pretty wide open. I mean, there's not many builds at the end of the slate where I'd be shocked that was what you needed to win. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go. Quarterback is the key. The stacks are the key today. We know who people are playing at running back. We know people are going cheap at tight end. So there's a clear path of what to expect in terms of roster construction, but the stacks are where it's at today. What quarterbacks you play, how you pair, and that's always the case, but I think a little more emphasis today, like how you play them, overstack, that sort of thing. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing SHIPIT Nation logos at the top of the leaderboard today. Yeah,
it's an exciting one. I like the slate. Now that we talk through it even more, just a lot of good things that we can do. Some of the stuff we talked about in the early games versus the afternoon, all the moves that you can make. One other thing I forgot to mention earlier, we already talked about it with the code. If you do want to get half price, saw a lot of people during the show taking advantage of it. It's going to end on Monday, so it's a flash sale. 50% off your first month, $34.50 for the content, all access, or $49.50 if you want to include Shiptimizer and check out our optimizer over at SHIPIT Nation. And then one other thing we added, if you're just here for the football stuff, we have a rest of season to Super Bowl package. $99 gets you week 11 through the Super Bowl. So all the rest of the regular season, all the playoffs, all of those showdown slates as well. We have the Stone, the Core Report, Player Pool, Slate Plan, projections and ownership, all the stuff for the main slate. And it includes college football through the rest of the year as well. And it's only $30 more, $129 if you want to add Shiptimizer for NFL main slate and showdown on top. So $129 rest of the season through Super Bowl with Optimizer, $99 without. Appreciate you guys. Thank you all for watching. That's going to do it for this one. For Hoop, for Title, and for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!